Hello everybody and welcome to another video. This one is going to be about tunings. And I made the first video, I think it was yesterday or something like that, and someone had asked me about tunings and I should have covered that, and I apologize if I'm not necessarily going in the specific order that you're supposed to go about basically learning how to play guitar, but tunings as far as this goes, uh, the only tuning that you should be really messing around with is the standard tuning. When you're in standard tuning, it's uh, it's as far as like what all the strings are named and everything. Like you have the string. If you're looking down at the guitar, the string closest to you, which would be the sixth string, is called the low E. And of course, my guitar right now is in standard tuning right now. So this is the low E. And it's called, there's two E strings. There's the low E, and then there's the high E. And the difference between them is just the tone of the note. Pretty much, the low E is called the low E because the tone of the note is low, like really, really deep, really. As far as pitch-wise goes, it's a very low kind of sounding note. And then you have the high E, which is like a lot higher, a lot more buzzy, I guess you could say, or something like that. So you can pretty much keep tune these to each other. You just have to develop your ear about it, and then you can tune one, and then you can tune the other one to the first string, the low E or whatever, whichever you decide to do it. And then as we keep going, you have the next string, which is the fifth string, or the one below the sixth string, the fifth string, which is the A string. And you can kind of play around with that a little bit. So you go from the E to the A, and then the next string as we go down is the D string. And if you keep going down, yeah, the G string. And if you're kind of having trouble tuning your guitar, you're trying to tune it by ear, and you're having a little bit of difficulty with my guitar is pretty much in tune. I'm not like, oh my god, this is right on E, right on A, right on D. So if you want to get pretty as close as you can, pretty much, then you can just kind of play along with what on each of the strings that I'm playing and try and tune it that way. Or but I'll get into that a little later. Okay, so we have the E, the low E, and then we have the A, and then the D, and then you have the G string, which we've gone over, and now we're down to the B string. This is the one right above the high E. It's the second to last string as you're going down towards the floor. And then the last one, of course, is the high E. And that is standard tuning for you. There is a specific way that you can kind of tune. If you're looking to tune standard tuning and you're trying to learn to tune by ear, there is a way that you can do that. Pretty much. As far as the notes on the guitar go, if you get to a certain position on one string, let's say you're on the low E, and you decide to fret a note, pretty much to put it simply, there's the same note on multiple strings. It just depends on where you fret the note down. So you could use this to tune the guitar to standard tuning. So if you only have the low E tune correctly, you could go to the 5th fret, which is the second dot right here. Each of these dots represents it's a kind of indicator to help you locate each of the frets. So you have the first dot, which is the 3rd fret, second dot, which is the 5th fret, the third one is the 7th, the 9th, and then the double dot is the 12th fret. Then the next single dot is the 15th, the 17th, the 19th, the 21st, and my guitar has 22 frets on it, so it goes to 22, but then that's the last dot is the 21st fret, usually. So once we got that out of the way, I am sorry for having to go back and forth with everything, but I hope that you can keep along with it. And I apologize ahead of time if I keep going back and forth with this. I'm just trying to get as straightforward a message out as possible. Alright. So anyways, you have the dot. So you go to the second dot, which is the 5th fret on the low E, and you play that note. And it's coming back to you, kind of, sort of. It sounds familiar. That's because when you play the 5th fret of the low E string, it kind of sounds like an A, or the A string. And you can kind of use that to start tuning down strings. So if you only had the low E, you can start tuning the A string to the low E at the 5th fret. And if you want, you can kind of play both strings at the same time and try and make sure that each pitch like matches the other. And try to make it to where both notes kind of sound in unison, so it makes there's no like this one kind of sounds lower than that one. Try to understand that as much as possible, because as far as me thinking right now, that's as easily as I can put it, just try and match the pitches. Notice how the low E at the 5th fret kind of sounds like the open A string. And then once you've got that down, you can go to the 5th fret of the A string, and that also kind of sounds familiar because it sounds like the open D string. And as with this formula, it kind of goes, it pretty much follows the same pattern except for one of the strings, and we'll get to that in a second. So we have the low E at the 5th fret, sounds like the open A string. Then the 5th fret of the A string sounds like an open D. Then you go to the D at the 5th fret. See, it's not the 4th, it's the 5th fret of the D string, sounds like an open G. Now where I was going with that is, this is what I was talking about a couple seconds ago, is that when you get to the G string, instead of it being on the 5th fret, it's the 4th fret, and then you can kind of tune from that. It's weird because the guitar is tuned in fourths, and if you know a little bit of theory about the guitar, then you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, then that's fine, don't worry about it. I'm just letting you know that's how the guitar is tuned. If you're looking into like standard tuning, different tunings is completely different. But yeah, so you go to the G string at the 4th fret, right here, and then you go, you play that, and that also kind of sounds familiar because it's the open B string. And as soon as you got that down, you can finally go to the last string, and this is where the pattern kind of resumes. It's 5th fret of the B string, kind of sounds like the open high E. And when you play them together, they kind of they're supposed to have the same pitch. So if it's correctly tuned, then the two notes played together will kind of have like this like unison kind of sounding thing. Okay, so you kind of got that. We'll go over that one more time. Yeah, the 5th fret of the low E to tune the A. Then you have the 5th fret of the A string to tune the open D string. Then you have the 5th fret of the D that will tune the open G. And then you have the 4th fret of the G string, which will tune the open B. And then the 5th fret one more time to tune the open E, the open high E. And then that's pretty much how you get standard tuning, like pretty much I'd have to say like 95% of songs out there, well not 95%, but a big majority of songs that you would attempt to learn are in standard tuning. Now if I do this rather quickly, switch guitars real quick because I have a couple of them right here. Take this one. Oops. And you can tell that the pitch of the strings is kind of different because this is tuned to a different tuning. It's E flat tuning, and if you've looked at tabs kind of or have any experience at all with some I have no clue where I'm going with this. Pretty much it's tuned down a half step, and what a half step is if you're looking at the guitar, if you play the open E, the open low E, and then you put a finger down on the 1st fret, that's a half step. It's the distance. It's the distance between one note to another. That's I don't know, but that's basically it. So if you had the first finger at the 1st fret of the low E, and then you fretted middle finger of the 2nd fret of the low E, that's a half step. Now a whole step is say you have the index finger at the 1st fret of the low E, and then you have your ring finger at the 3rd fret of the low E. That is a whole step, and a whole step is pretty much 2 half steps. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. And whereas E flat goes, usually what people like to do with E flat, it loosens up the string so it's easier to bend, and it allows people to like really just kind of dig in and bend their heart out. So there's that. Some songs that have used this tuning, some U2 songs, some Metallica songs have used this tuning, some Van Halen, some Jimi Hendrix. Pretty much that, or some U2. So if you want, you can kind of look up songs that are in E flat, uh, and just kind of mess around with that. Alright, now kind of the last one that we're pretty much going to talk about is an open tuning. And an open tuning is pretty much where the guitar is, each string is tuned to a specific note of a chord, and when you strum all the strings open, it creates a chord. So you have like an open D tuning, open G, open A, open E. There's like a lot of uh, different open tunings, and pretty much what this is used for is like a lot of slide players like to play. They like to play with an open tuning, so they can kind of play one chord and then just kind of slide down, and just it's an easy way to switch between chords. So you can play like. So yeah, I think this is tuned to open D. And as you can see, all you have to do is just put down one finger across all the strings, and then you can switch between chords. It's like, so you have an open D, and then you have a G. I think that's right. So you have, no, this is an open G tuning. My bad. I'm sorry. This is open G. So you have the G, and then like a C, and then a D. And that's pretty much what the open tuning is. As far as the E flat and the open tunings go, these are more advanced. I wouldn't expect someone who's learning guitar to mess around with these too much, because it is kind of a hassle to switch between, because you have to change all the strings tunings, you have to lower some, you have to raise some sometimes, and that's just kind of annoying. If you only have one guitar, switching between tunings is really annoying because it takes forever, and then you're like, oh, I want to play this song, but it's in standard tuning, and you have to switch back to that tuning, and it's just a bunch of back and forth kind of stuff that you don't really want to mess with too much, because then you'll get annoyed and want to stop playing because it's just like it's too much. But anyways, I'm gonna switch back to the guitar real quick. And I pretty much kind of lied to you because I said that the open tuning is the last tuning that I was going to show, but then I remembered that there's one last tuning that you can kind of switch to, and it's probably the easier ones out of most of the ones that I just showed you, besides the standard tuning, because most guitars are tuned standard. But pretty much what this last tuning is, it's called drop D, and what you're doing is you're only changing the low E. So it's tuned to E and standard, but when you go to drop D, it's pretty much self-explanatory. You're dropping the E to a D, and pretty much what you can do is you have the D string already tuned to D, so all you have to do is lower the E string, and you can kind of play the E and the D together so that you can kind of match the pitch. And when you get to that point, there's an easy way to tell that you're actually in standard tuning, because if you play the first the top three strings closest to you, the E, the A, and the D together, you can hear a power chord. And whereas with standard tuning, you would have to play it like you have to fret each thing. You can just play the open strings and you have a power chord, and then you can put one finger on that and you can just move power chords all over the place. And one really famous song that uses drop D is Everlong by Foo Fighters. And that's really the easiest one that I can think of as for right now. I know there's a couple. Let's see, there's a couple of Rage Against the Machine songs that use drop D. There's a lot of rock songs like to use drop D because it's easier to play power chords and everything. All you have to do is put one finger down and then you kind of move it along the neck and you just play bar chords, or not bar chords, power chords all over the place. One last thing that I kind of forgot to mention, there's different ways of going about tuning. You can tune by ear, which is what I mostly mentioned, and as far as that goes, if you're looking to become a musician, developing your ear is crucial. And I don't mean going into a science lab and magically just growing one, but I mean as far as recognizing certain pitches within your head by just listening to them and understanding, like, oh, okay, I can play this note on this string and it'll sound the same as this note on this other string, and that kind of thing. So that way you can understand, like if you're approaching standard tuning, that way it'll be a lot easier for you to tune your guitar without having to put much fuss into trying to go out and purchase all these new gadgets that'll help you tune a lot faster. And there's nothing wrong with getting electronic tuners, because that's mostly what I use. This is a clip-on tuner, and pretty much what you do is you can get these at any music store pretty much. Clip it onto the headstock, which is this part right here, and you turn it on, and it recognizes the pitch by the vibrations on the string. So you play one string, and it'll kind of light up the note on the string, or the note on the screen will pop up, and if it's not exactly E or whatever, it'll kind of pop up, and then you kind of tune uh, accordingly to what the note is on the screen. And then you have just a basic lap tuner, which is what I would call it, because you can put it on your lap and there's a microphone built into it to where you can play and it'll recognize the sound coming from the guitar into the microphone, and then it's pretty much the same thing as the clip-on one, whereas the pitch of the string that you're playing will pop up on the screen, and then you can kind of tune according to that. And then another really important one that might be a little bit more helpful to do would be to tune by piano. Now, I don't have a piano to help you out with this, and I will probably show you this a little later on, but as far as if you're familiar with the piano, and if you look up online, there's probably some diagrams of how to do this, but you look for, if you're going for standard tuning, of course, you go by each of the notes as you go down the string, or up the strings, whichever what you want to call it, going down towards the floor as far as string-wise goes, and you play a note on the piano or keyboard or whatever, and then you match it with the pitch of the string. And that's also tuning by ear, but it might be a little more helpful if you're trying to go that route to play it on a piano, because it's more consistent. Like, you don't really have to keep retuning it. You can just play the piano, and then there's the note magically, and then you just match the pitch with that. Um, as far as anything else goes, think uh, I don't think I missed anything else. As far as that goes, that is mostly about tuning. There could be some things I left out, some things I skipped over, that kind of thing. I could have made some mistakes when talking about it. Um, but other than that, that is pretty much tunings. If you have any suggestions for another video, or just want to leave comments about the video or stuff like that, just go ahead and do that, and I will see you next time in the next video.